What's up, YouTube? A Convict's Perspective. It's your boy Rojo.
It's your boy Flacco, man. Coming live and direct.
Today we're gonna talk about the Bulldogs, man. Them Fresno boys, them hitters down there from the Central. Flacco's done a lot of research on this, man. So I'm gonna give him the microphone and let him do his thing.
Well, let's start in the beginning. To understand the Bulldogs, right? You got to understand one of the most influential pieces to the puzzle, which would be Crackers Vindiola, who was a higher-ranking NF member at that time. And where this all started to translate was in the 70s, okay? And this is before the split and all that. You know, Crackers was put in charge of the first ever regiment out there in Fresno. And at that time, they started to partake in a lot of activities. There was two hot spots for NF activity out there in the streets, one being Fresno and one being Bakersfield. At that time, they were involved in a lot of things from extorting drug dealers to contract killings, and there was a lot of directives that were coming from Death Row Joe at that time, and one of the main directives that was coming out is that they wanted to end up hitting Chalo, right? Who was one of the founders of the Nuestra Familia. And on this day, May 30th, 1977, word got back to a lot of NF dropouts in Bakersfield that the NF was coming to eliminate former members who have defected from the gang. Some of the active gang members were Hector Gallegos, Copas from Salinas, Jim Hernandez from Salinas, Raymond Perez from Bakersfield, David Cervantes from Chino, which is DC, Gilbert Juarez from Bakersfield, Sammy Venegas, Adrian Viniola, and David Morris de Visalia. What ended up happening is you ended up having two shootings at that time. There ended up being two casualties. One actually was David Morris, an NF member from Visalia, as well as a Refugio Martinez, who was an innocent bystander who was on leave from the military. This was all in directions that came from Death Row Joe, as far as they were trying to clean out all known NF hermits. So as that was transpiring, there was a lot of murders going on. And one of the other main issues was another situation that was occurring, which was with NF member Sammy Venegas. Okay, he was upset that they killed his brother, his Lupe, on January 6, 1976. And they shot at him trying to kill him December 1977 and again in 1980. This was Sammy Venegas. So as the NF continued to commit numerous murders at that time, man, there's been a whole lot of different conspiracies of what happened at this time place. All we know is eventually Crackers ended up being the pivotal role, as well as Sammy Venegas, in dividing themselves as far as between the Bulldogs and the NF, right? Both of them started to fall out of favor. It's alleged that Sammy Venegas started testifying. When they got indicted in 1982, a lot of that was for the old murders that occurred back in the 70s. I think Sammy Venegas was already in bad terms. And there's theories about that Crackers was instructed to hit Sammy Venegas and a couple other individuals at that time. And so as this transitioned, there was also rumors about Crackers running off with the regiment bank. There was numerous allegations. We don't know the whole details of the story of exactly what happened, but these are the allegations that set forth. And what this ended up doing was it ended up creating a split to where Crackers started to want to be independent from the NF, right? He never wanted to support the MA or the Sureños. So as he gets sent to the feds, he decided to create his own Bulldog Council back in 1983 in San Quentin.
Yeah, the main thing I can add about that is from what I learned from Tibbs was that the straw that broke the camel's back in that situation was the running off with the funds from the organization bank. Supposedly it was tens of thousands of dollars, and you know, all the little bickering and stuff, they were supposedly in the process of ironing that out. But when that money came up missing, there was no redeeming that. You know what I mean? So also one thing about Crackers, that's a very dangerous human being. Like, he was a butcher, man. He's one of, you know, the most elite hitters that have ever been around as far as this organization goes, man. So, you know, they had to approach Crackers in the right way because they knew he wasn't playing.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of it is based on the history, as far as a lot of times Crackers felt like he was being used. You know what I mean? There's going to be different things, like as far as the money issue. I think he got pissed off and decided to run off with the money.
Yeah.
I think that there was a personal internal conflict that was going on amongst the NF, which was common because you had to split at that time with the NF1 and NF2. And I believe Crackers actually was on the side of NF2 at that time. I don't, as far as with Black Bob and all that, I think he was supportive of them. Okay. But he ended up starting the first Bulldog prison gang board, which happened in San Quentin in 1983. And the founders were Tony Big G Sateri, Leonard Rocco Reese, Mike Chicago Reyes, and Ricky Animal Garcia.
You know, another guy I hear of that was involved is Chicken Legs, man, but I can't never find out too much information about him, real name, like what his involvement was or anything like that. So I've been trying to research Chicken Legs for quite some time, and I've come up with a blank, man. If anybody out there, like from Fresno, or anybody in particular knows anything about Chicken Legs, man, we'd be interested to know what you guys found out.
See, people believe that Crackers started the first Bulldog Nation. That is not true. The Bulldog Nation and Bulldogs were two separate entities at one time. The BDN founders were actually Mousy Morales, Pollo Dorte, whose stepdad ended up being Fonzie Palomino from the MA.
Pollo might be Chicken Legs then.
Yeah. Okay. Pollo, there also, another founder was BDN, was Playboy. Okay. The Vindiola, specifically Crackers and his brother Spooky, did not like the BDN and their alliance with the MA Sud. They stated Fresno Bulldogs would be independent. Here are some other interesting facts. Richard Canicas Aguilar and Gilbert Happy Ambalong had Fresno's ties and were rumored to be NF associates from Fresno. Ruben Garnica was listed as Babo Faction Fresno RC in 1975. Jaime Black Shorty Corpas had an old B number, picked up a new T number. He was NF in the mid-80s, but deemed no good in 1994 by Pinky and Corny. Paul Pablito de Herrera was NF in 1972, was stabbed at in Jamestown in 1972. Benito Binoy Dunham was Northern Structure, but went Bulldog in 1991 in New Folsom Sea Facility. Other members were Sammy Smiley Estrada, who was a former NF associate who became a Bulldog leader. The Bulldog Nation actually had a constitution, and they described what was called Consola del Perro Chato. It was written to enable Bulldogs to walk free of the bonds. This was basically a reformat of the original Bulldog Council Constitution formed 10 years earlier at San Quentin. The BDN had pushed by Mousy Morales fell apart, but less formalized Fresno Bulldogs and County Dogs remained basically as they do today. Peter Rabbit G. Jr. functioned with NFNS in the feds at the same place where Pony Boy, Rico, and Skip were at in the feds, and evidently was okay. His dad, Psycho Pete G., helped pen the new NF Constitution for Babo and DRG. And I think Big Pete had ties to the Gabriels in Oklahoma. Pistol G was actually the individual that Skip had killed and was found not guilty, the alleged child molester that he talks about on Boxer's tape. He was actually a Bulldog.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. Hey, so what I've been hearing, man, but I'm not 100% sure, is that the, in the state, we obviously have, the no goods with the Bulldogs. And that doesn't extend into hostilities with them, correct?
No, it doesn't.
They're the only ones that are excluded.
The only ones that are excluded.
Okay, but in the feds, a lot of people are saying that the NF and the Bulldogs run together. Do you know that?
Well, see, there's two different things that ended up occurring, right? Like I touched base a couple of times. There was a faction of Norteños in Washington called the Big Dogs.
Okay.
It was actually a prison organization just in Washington of Norteños.
That's a prison gang?
Yes, they were not. They were not under the NF umbrella.
Okay.
When they got to the feds, right? Skip actually confronted these issues. Okay, you guys are Norteños. You know what I mean? They had all Bulldogs on them, but you guys are representing as Big Dogs. He goes, it's apple oranges here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Either you're with us or you're not. So basically, all the Washington Big Dogs, which was a former organization, they are now in line under the umbrella of the NF. And from my understanding, right, I've heard this from numerous resources, that Skip has felt the Bulldogs could always be pulled back. And slowly, they've been pulling Bulldogs back into the fold in the feds as far as running with the Norteños.
That makes sense, man. That, as far as, I'm not with any of these kinds of things, but from a standpoint as being, let's say, an NF member, you would want, that's a lot of manpower they lost. Between San Jose and Fresno, those are the two biggest hoods by far. It makes sense to try to, reconcile with them individuals or come to at least a mutual understanding where at least you're not enemies, right?
We'll see, Sammy Venegas, he testified.
Right.
Those are facts. So did Crackers later on. Those are facts.
Right.
I know there's been rumors as far as people saying that there was fake paperwork written up. I don't think anybody's ever going to go to the extent to make some fake paperwork.
Not back then.
All to be in cahoots.
Yeah.
Because Cracker had a solid reputation within the NF, man.
He's a butcher, like I was saying, bro. He's a lot of old school killers say he's a killer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So the original Bulldog split actually occurred in 1983, but you still had Bulldogs that were loyal to the Norte.
All the way up to like 88, 87,
Well,
88.
because basically the faction that was in San Quentin was something that was totally under, they were under Cracker's direction. So they were already looked at as far as NF dropouts. The rest of the Bulldogs hadn't came into the fold in support of it.
Right.
But as they started to promote themselves more and more, a lot of NF members started dropping out from Fresno just based upon that issue.
You know what's a trip, man, is I'll see, okay, the NF will look at the Bulldogs as like dropouts, and Norteños look at them as like dropouts. I look at them as their own entity because I think they've earned that over the years by their willingness to go to war and not go off these main lines. And you know, when you group the Bulldogs in with like groups like the Northern Riders and the Deuce Fivers, I just don't think that's showing them their proper respect personally, because I think the Bulldogs are with the business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, see, that was a different time era. Let's remember back then in the 80s, right? You had cars. You had the Fresno car, you had the Sanjo car, SAC car. And what it was you would all kick it with your own car. And if it was time for war, then you guys all got together.
Right.
All the Norteños got off.
Man, it was even like that my first term, man. San Jose, there'd be 50 of them guys. Salinas, there'd be 30 of them. Stockton, there'd be 20 of them. There was like 7 of us from my hood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'd all be segregated, like you're saying. And this was only in 93, you know? It was weird.
Yeah, so the Bulldogs were mainly in San Quentin, but they hadn't it started to kick off slowly in 89, 90. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that started to occur in New Folsom. You know what I'm saying? The Bulldogs actually took the yard over from the Norteños in New Folsom.
Wow.
They actually had their own Bulldog newspaper and all kinds of crazy stuff, right?
What do you mean newspaper?
Like a prison newspaper called the Bulldog Nation or something like that, or the Bulldog. I forgot what it was called, but those are confirmed facts.
How are they writing this newspaper?
I don't know. They used to have newspapers back then in the prison facility.
Yeah, I know that used to be like one of the what you call it. It'd be like an elective in high school. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a program you could get into. But you would think that the staff wouldn't let a group write.
Well, they were having issues of selling up people. You know what I'm saying? Because if you were from Fresno, you didn't always align with the Bulldogs.
Right.
And then the Bulldog Nation, like I said, it died out. You know what I'm saying? It was actually some type of movement and organization, like by the members I suggested, right?
Yeah.
And those were the ones that were in Folsom. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And Crackers had an issue with it because Pollo's dad was Fonzie, who's a known Mexican mafia member who's still active to this day. That's his stepdad. That's where the alliance came, where the Bulldogs were allies with the Sureños for a little bit.
How long did that last? Only like a year, huh?
It didn't last that long, man.
They were selling up, right?
They were selling up.
Man, that had to be awkward.
You know, but that's where that occurred.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And Crackers was always against it. Crackers wanted them to be independent because as much as he despised the NF for whatever was going on politically, you know what I mean? We see the politics going on to this day that, you know what I mean? There's always been some serious politics going on with the NF for years.
Yeah, there's always something happening.
And there's something going on that none of these viewers or listeners would even understand throughout all these years. Yeah. Some stuff we're not even told.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of things, man. And, you know, I was around for a second.
You know? So eventually the Bulldogs have became their own independent entity.
You know what's a trip, man, is you know that the reason that they got along and the MA blessed that, you know, union that they had temporarily, the MA's not stupid. They see Fresno as a big opportunity to make money if they could get some kind of good working alliance with them. But at the same time, they would obviously want to be in control of the situation too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like Fresno is, I mean, that's a big hood. There's lots of Latinos there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of dope fiends there. There's a lot of prostitutes there. So either, man, you know, I'm not surprised if Skip, especially, you know, Corny, those guys are smart, man. If they were able to work a reunion of some sort, or at least some kind of working relationship with them dudes, man, it could be really beneficial to them guys.
Mousy Morales, right, the founder of the BDN, actually tried to go in 2005 to the feds and tried to claim Norteño.
Oh, wow.
They ended up giving him the business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He tried to make amends for it. He had already lost out, like I said, when there was that Bulldog split. People don't know. There's a difference between the Bulldogs and Bulldog Nation. You know what I mean? Crackers won out. Crackers had more influence. Right. Crackers had more power.
Right.
These individuals, Mousy and Foyle on them, went rogue and tried to start their own faction. They had certain bonds like seek and destroy all busters, and they had their own little constitution that, you know, we walk free of bonds, and their whole enemy purpose.
They got their own constitution that walks free of bonds. That's kind of like an oxymoron, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, most definitely, man. So that's where the Bulldogs have been directed. And see, This is all they've been taught. There's been a lot of misinformation. I mean, everything that I gave you guys has been all historical valid points. There's a whole lot of misconceptions. There's certain things that we can tell you what we were told. You know what I'm saying? The main part was that both Crackers and Sammy Venegas had snitched.
Right.
You know what I mean? For whatever reasons. They claimed that they were being abused and mistreated and used and felt abandoned by the organization and felt that Sanjo was trying to cross them up. So be it. I don't know how true that is. To a certain extent, there probably was some issues there.
Well, there's always, I mean, there's always going to be hurt feelings.
You know, but I mean, during the late 70s, I mean, the NF, I think in 1 year, they killed 38 people in Fresno. You can go through all the newspaper clippings.
Right.
Those are all confirmed facts. A lot of them were prostitutes or drug dealers that were not kicking in.
Yeah.
You know, and every time there was hits and murders that had to go out there, it went through Crackers. You know what I'm saying? They used to use out-of-towners to go handle business. So what regiment was always called upon to take these actions? Fresno.
Right.
Like the situation in Bakersfield. That same situation in Bakersfield where they tried to get Charlo, DC got shot as well. I forgot to mention that. David Cervantes from Chino. So these issues with the Bulldogs have been going on for years. And now it's to a part to where this new generation, they only know what they've been taught.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And to a certain extent, what really happened.
Yeah, I never learned a lot about the Bulldogs until I did my own research after I was already out of the whole politic thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that wasn't really taught to us in depth, man. It's just like, yeah, these guys ain't cool no more. You know, if you see them, it's mandatory. You know, they're official. I think they gave them official data like 88 or 89 as like totally deeming that whole city basically. Well, I don't remember.
It wasn't the city; it was the Bulldogs. I think it didn't take fruit till the 90s because there were still Bulldogs in the systems that were representing Norte.
Man, I thought I was told like 88 or 89, but I could be mistaken, man.
So the Bulldogs split, man, from the NF and Norteño movement. It's been one of those situations that's been scrutinized a lot, man. But I think I gave as much accurate information, dates, times, people that were involved. These were all key factors. In the end game, it all came down to Vignola and the Venegases.
From your understanding, or whatever you've been told in your history as far as them gentlemen are concerned, do you understand how they're like? Do they have a chain of command, or how it works, or do you know anything about their internal politics?
Well, they used to have a Bulldog constitution,
right?
And basically it was like everybody had a say so. Now, pretty much, they just got rid of that whole structure. The Bulldog Nation actually had some bonds, believe it or not.
Right.
And I listed that before. But now it's just every dog for himself, equally. They kind of run independently. They're not deep. They're not like 30, 40,000. There's only maybe about 10,000 Bulldogs, period.
That's still a considerable number.
And you have Bulldogs in other areas like Sanger, Sacramento, different people who, at that time, before there was any type of SNY gangs, you had people who decided to affiliate themselves with the Bulldogs.
For the more lax approach to politics, I'd imagine.
Well, there was, there was a lot of abuses going on in those yards too, though that didn't help. You know what I'm saying? As far as within the NR and structure as well.
Yeah, you got a word for that. A new cause comes of oppression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever there's any threat of oppression, you know what I'm saying? And certain cars had a little bit more strength on the yards, and it seemed like the Bulldogs kind of always wanted the Bulldogs, or Fresno in general, were a strong car at one time. But the whole Bulldog attitude that they started to have on these yards is what started to separate them and started to make other groups look at them differently. They were still Norteños at that time, but they were Bulldogs. And slowly they started to separate themselves, and there was no really green light put on them until later on. They were basically, let's say, the best way people have always asked, has there ever been a hood been green lighted by the NF? The Bulldogs is a prime example. And you look at them, they're almost in the same relevancy of how Maravilla's been.
Right. No doubt.
Where they didn't want to bang the Trece. Their thing was they didn't want to support the bonds or the structure of the NF. They wanted to still be up from north. You have different things about the 14. I heard someone say that it represented family, but there's no proof or documentation of that. And I've reached out to numerous resources, and there's nothing that says that. I think that was F-14 was basically a street gang out there in Fresno at one time.
Wouldn't that just mean Fresno 14?
Basically.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They adopted the Bulldogs, and it was just basically a whole way to separate themselves from everyone else. You know what I'm saying? Because you need to have your own moniker and identification as opposed to being in the 14 or XIV. Right. It became the F-14 Bulldogs. That's what separated themselves from everyone else. And that's where they started to transition and transform. And things have changed, you know. The Bulldogs have traditionally, they've been with the business. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
that's all the feedback I've ever gotten on them guys.
They were fighting for theirs, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a trip. The biggest trip I used to think of is when they aligned themselves with the Sureños. And basically what the Sureños were doing on these yards, like places like Avenal and other facilities, is they were utilizing the Bulldogs to put in all their work.
Right.
Norteño would show up to the yard. The Bulldogs were okay to stay on that yard, but you have to take off on the Norteños.
Yeah, right.
So they were basically being utilized as pawns.
Right.
You know, and over time, that's why the Vignolas, crackers in general, always wanted the Bulldogs to be independent. They never want, their whole thing is that all these groups oppress their people.
Yeah.
And so their thing is that we're not going to be oppressed. We're Bulldogs. They're kind of like the Northern Riders in a sense, but not as flamboyant. I mean, Northern Riders, they have their one president or pope or whatever you want to call him, Snoop. You know what I mean? I guess they look at him as some mythical god.
Yeah.
The Bulldogs don't have that. They just have individuals who are, you know, well respected and looked at differently than others.
Yeah, I trip on that dude Snoop, man. He puts out some videos wherever he's at right now every once in a while, and they'll come across my feed, and man, I can't help but watch him, man, because it kind of trips me out. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. Nothing against that dude because I don't know him, so I don't have anything personal against him, man. But I don't understand how he has such a big following, you know, because like I said, no disrespect, but I'm not impressed. You know, I don't know what it is. You know, the only thing I really ever knew about the Bulldogs, man, because in my whole career, I've only came across one as an enemy, and he came into our pod in Pelican Bay in 1996, and he stayed in there about 3 hours, man. He didn't like some of the psychological warfare we were doing on him, and he got the hell out of there real quick, like. And it was a pretty funny story, man, but he got out of there real quick, and that was the only time I'd ever even seen a Bulldog in real life. You know, later when I came back after, you know, I'd already walked away, I was in Tracy, and there was a few of them, and they were like YA rejects, man. They were all like, they were kids, man. They were directly across from me in L Wing in Tracy. I think second tier in the front, and there's a dorm in there across the way, and then there's some cells. And I used to talk to them in sign language, and man, they were cool, man. There was a little youngster called Jerry Salazar. I don't remember what his little, you know, hood name is or anything like that, but his name was Jerry Salazar. He was a youngster, bro, and he was cool stuff, man. He used to crack me up. He had jokes, man. It's like, how do you make me laugh in sign language? But he used to have me busting up, man. But like I said, man, I never ran into them guys, man. I seen that one in Pelican Bay, but they were always kept so separated from us that, you know, I never even had a chance to have any kind of confrontations with them, you know?
Yeah, they were always considered like our number one enemy.
Yeah, them and the AB. That was always my understanding is, man, the AB was number one always. And then the Bulldogs. Like, the MA and the Sureños were actually down on the list, man. It's kind of weird in retrospect.
Well, I think that also goes for the MA too. I think that, like I was talking to someone the other day, I don't think the MA has ever tripped off the NF for Norteños for like the last 30 years. 40 years.
Man, all that stuff happened so long ago, man, that it's not. I mean, I understand like upstate Sureños and Norteños why there's, you know, going to be some, you know, held on to animosities, man, because that stuff's still real fresh on the streets. But man, as far as that old stuff, man, it's like, man, how long are you mad about something? You know, if somebody does something to you personally that affects you, yeah, I could see it being, you know, quite a long time before you move on from the feelings of anger or wanting to get some get back or whatnot. But if it doesn't directly affect you so much, it's like, how long do you hold on to some, it's almost fabricated hostility at that point, because it's been so long since the NF and the MA have gone at each other.
So do you think the Bulldogs could be put back in the fold of the state? Or you think that's just not going to happen?
I don't see it happening, to be honest with you. I don't think there's no way.
That's what they said about the end of hostilities too, though.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? It depends. You know what I mean?
Hey, what's up with y'all Bulldogs and actives out there, man? Y'all gonna be friends again? You know, that's, you know, I don't see it, but like you said, man, if you would have told me 15 years ago that them, you know, our former organization and that organization are gonna be tattooing on each other, playing handball. Hey, you guys want to come eat our spread? I would have said you were high, bro.
But wouldn't you think that they would be the first ones to be utilized if they were brought back into the fold?
I think that now, after time, they would know better than to fall into that kind of a situation. and that's why they've chosen to remain independent, because they've learned their lesson. When they try to align with them vatos down there. Yeah, I mean, I think both groups would try, but man, that's a hard one, bro. I don't even know what to say. I don't see it happening. I think the Bulldogs are going to remain their own entity, but man, things have fooled me, brother. So I don't know.
All right, for this episode, that's going to be it about the Bulldogs. I may bring some more information to you guys in the future. This was just a brief little history account and some ideas, as well as we gave our own perspective of how we see things. As always, there's a lot of different history, but this one was done with extensive research, calculated facts, documentations, and so forth.
Hey, we got a homie that checks out our channel that's a Bulldog, and he just paroled off of active level 4, so he might have some feedback that if he gives it to me, man, and I'll give it to you guys, you know what I'm saying? Just because in case we're not accurate, he might know something we don't know, and we'll check it out, you know what I mean? But he's on here all the time, man, so hopefully he'll reach out again. He reached out to me once, and let me know what he feels, as a long time active member who did an extensive term. So I guess with that, YouTube, this is going to end it for this one. So, man, please hit that like and subscribe. YouTube's trying to not push us so hard, man. So all them likes and subscriptions help us, man. Have a good day.